Solarpunk Resistance. Chapter 1, Twilight Whispers. The rhythmic rumble of the geothermal drill vibrated through Kai's boots, a constant thrumming counterpoint to the low hum of bioluminescent flora lining the cavern walls. Lumina, his city, a vast network of tunnels carved deep beneath the Earth's crust, pulsed with an artificial life. The oppressive twilight, the only reality most Luminians knew, cast long shadows from the drill's skeletal frame. Sweat beaded on Kai's brow despite the perpetual chill, a testament to the exertion of monitoring the vitals of the churning behemoth. His gaze drifted upwards, past the flickering bioluminescent panels overhead, to a faint metallic glint in the distance. It was barely a whisper against the darkness, a fleeting anomaly in the monotonous tunnel. Yet it tugged at a corner of his mind, stirring a familiar unease. Whispers, passed down through generations like faded tapestries, echoed in his memory, whispers of a hidden chamber, a relic from a bygone era. A sigh escaped Supervisor Amara's lips, a wisp of condensation forming in the cold air as it left her mouth. Her gaze, usually sharp and watchful, held a distant glint. "Another 12-hour shift, Kai. You'd think a young man like you wouldn't tire so easily." Kai forced a smile, the ever-present weariness clinging to him like a shroud. "Just lost in thought, Supervisor. Geothermal readings are nominal." Amara's sharp eyes narrowed, a flicker of something unreadable passing through them. "Thinking about the surface, are we? Those stories are just that, Kai. Stories. We have geothermal vents and bioluminescence. We have Lumina. The vampires wouldn't tolerate any—" She trailed off, her voice dropping to a low murmur. "Foolishness." The word hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the reality beyond the cavern walls. The vampires, shrouded in myth and legend, were the undisputed rulers above. Their energy shield, a malevolent dome of darkness, blocked out the sun, condemning humanity to an eternal twilight. A pang of longing stabbed at Kai's heart. He had never seen the sun, only grainy images preserved in ancient data archives. The stories spoke of warmth, of life-giving light, a stark contrast to the cold blue glow of bioluminescence. He cleared his throat, forcing himself to focus on the rhythmic hum of the drill. "Of course, Supervisor. Just a moment of daydreaming. Happens to the best of us, right?" Amara studied him for a long moment, then nodded curtly. The corner of her lips twitched upwards, a hint of a ghost of a smile fleeting across her face. "Just make sure your daydreams don't get you into trouble, Kai. Lumina needs all its engineers focused, especially with the recent disturbances." Her voice dropped again, a conspiratorial air tinging her words. Kai's curiosity piqued. Disturbances? But before he could press further, a klaxon blared through the cavern, shattering the silence. Red emergency lights strobed, casting an ominous glow on Amara's face. "Looks like there's been a breach in Sector C," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "Report to your emergency stations. We don't know what it is, but we handle it efficiently, as always." Kai nodded, a surge of adrenaline momentarily overriding the weariness. Emergencies were rare, but Lumina was prepared. He moved towards his designated escape pod, the metallic glint in the distance momentarily forgotten amidst the sudden flurry of activity. Yet a seed of unease had been planted, a whisper urging him to delve deeper into the twilight shadows. Chapter 2, Shadows and Secrets. The klaxons had died down, replaced by the rhythmic hum of the emergency ventilation system, clearing residual smoke from the breach. Kai, tucked away in his cramped quarters, couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The official report declared a malfunction in a geothermal vent, a routine occurrence quickly contained. Yet the hushed whispers among his fellow engineers spoke of something more, a struggle, a glimpse of something dark and otherworldly. The metallic glint continued to gnaw at him. It was a foolish notion, he knew, a relic from childhood bedtime stories spun by his grandmother. Stories of a time before the vampires, a time bathed in golden sunlight. Yet the glint persisted, a beacon in the oppressive twilight of his thoughts. Sleep eluded him. Long after the other engineers settled into their bunks, Kai donned his worn utility suit, the familiar weight a strange comfort. He grabbed a discarded data pad, its screen cracked and flickering. He needed access to the restricted archives, a treasure trove of Lumina's forgotten past. The access terminal blinked a menacing red. Unauthorized access denied. Kai gritted his teeth. A childhood memory surfaced. His grandmother, her wrinkled face lit by a flickering bioluminescent bulb, whispering forgotten codes, remnants of a bygone era. With trembling fingers, he typed them in. The terminal hummed, processing the ancient sequence. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then with a hiss, the screen flickered to life, granting him access. He delved into the archives, sifting through dusty data files. Hours melted away, the flickering screen illuminating his determined expression. Finally, a grainy image materialized. A cavern, eerily similar to the network of tunnels he knew, but with walls adorned with strange symbols and a metallic object pulsating with an ethereal blue light. The caption below sent a jolt through him. The Dawn Forge, Projects Unveil. His heart pounded in his chest. This was it. The whispers, the glint, they were real. He scrolled further, devouring information about the Dawn Forge, a forgotten relic from a time before the vampire's reign. Its purpose remained shrouded in mystery, but mentions of energy and sunlight sent a spark of hope igniting within him. Suddenly, a harsh voice shattered the silence. "What in the name of the council are you doing here?" Kai spun around, his heart leaping into his throat. Supervisor Amara stood in the doorway, her face an unreadable mask. Shame washed over him, a cold wave threatening to drown the spark of hope. He stammered, clutching the datapad. I was just curious." Amara approached him, her gaze fixed on the datapad. A long moment passed, filled with a tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Then she sighed, a hint of weariness creeping into her eyes. "Curious about what, Kai?" He met her gaze, a newfound resolve hardening his voice. "The Dawn Forge. What is it?" Amara's lips pressed into a thin line. "The Dawn Forge is nothing, boy. A relic from a time we shouldn't dwell on. The Council keeps such things buried for a reason." "But what if—" Kai's voice trailed off, fear battling with his newfound curiosity. Amara's gaze softened slightly. "There are things, Kai, that are best left undisturbed. The vampires are a harsh reality, but Lumina is our haven. We keep the lights on, the vents running. We live." She placed a weathered hand on his shoulder, a silent plea in her eyes. "There is no sun to chase after, Kai. Just the cold reality of the twilight." Kai stared at her, the weight of her words heavy on him. Yet the image of the Dawn Forge, a beacon of hope in the darkness, burned bright in his mind. Chapter 3. Seeds of Rebellion. Days bled into weeks, the image of the Dawn Forge a constant presence in Kai's mind. He carried the knowledge of its existence like a forbidden fruit, a secret gnawing at his conscience. Amara's words echoed in his ears, a stark reminder of the dangers of defying the Council. Yet the recent breach incident continued to fuel his unease. The hushed whispers among engineers had morphed into a low hum of discontent. Rumors of increased vampire patrols and tighter security measures swirled around Lumina's corridors. It felt like a storm was brewing, a tension crackling in the oppressive atmosphere. One evening, as the ever-present thrum of the geothermal drill lulled most of Lumina into sleep, Kai found himself drawn back to the area where he had spotted the metallic glint. He clutched a modified mining laser drill, his heart pounding against his ribs. He had spent the past few days discreetly gathering supplies, fueled by a desperate hope and a sliver of rebellion. Reaching the spot, he activated the laser, its piercing beam carving a narrow path through the rock face. Hours bled into a grueling blur as he chipped away, sweat stinging his eyes. The rhythmic hum of the drill replaced by the whine of his laser. Doubt gnawed at him with each passing minute. Was this a fool's errand? Just as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, the laser beam met with a hollow thud. He deactivated it, his breath ragged. Using his pickaxe, he carefully chipped away the remaining debris, revealing a narrow opening veiled in shadow. A wave of exhilaration washed over him, quickly replaced by a surge of trepidation. Taking a deep breath, he squeezed through the opening, finding himself in a cramped passage. He activated a headlamp, its beam cutting through the darkness to reveal a network of dusty tunnels branching out in all directions. This wasn't part of the Lumina he knew. The air here held a stale tang, a sense of age and neglect. As he ventured deeper, an unsettling sense of being watched prickled his skin. Was this his imagination, or was there something else lurking in the shadows? Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the distance caught his eye. He froze, his pulse hammering in his ears. In the faint light, he saw a figure, cloaked in darkness, slip around a corner. It moved with a practiced ease, a stark contrast to the stiff, regimented movements of the Lumina guards. Curiosity warring with caution, Kai followed, his steps silent in the oppressive quiet. The figure led him deeper into the labyrinthine tunnels until finally it stopped before a large metal door. The figure turned, its face hidden in the shadows. "Looking for something, engineer?" A voice low and gravelly echoed in the cavernous space. Kai stood rooted to the spot, his heart pounding a frantic tattoo against his ribs. He had stumbled upon something far greater than he could have ever imagined. This wasn't just a hidden chamber. This was a spark of rebellion, a beacon of hope in the oppressive twilight. Chapter 4, A Spark of Dawn. The figure remained shrouded in darkness, its voice the only indication of its presence. Kai swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. "Who are you?" he whispered, his voice barely audible in the vast chamber. A faint smile flickered in the shadows. "Someone who remembers the sun, engineer. Someone who fights for a brighter future." The figure stepped forward, revealing a woman, her face lined with experience, her eyes glinting with a steely resolve. She wore a worn jumpsuit, patched and mended, a stark contrast to the pristine uniforms of Lumina's engineers. "My name is Anya," she continued, extending a hand towards Kai. "Welcome to the Sunborn Rebellion." Hesitantly, Kai reached out and grasped her hand. It was rough and calloused, a stark reminder of the hardships she had endured. "The Sunborn Rebellion?" he echoed, the name sending a shiver down his spine. He had heard whispers, rumors of a resistance movement fighting from the shadows, but never did he believe it to be real. Anya nodded. "We are the ones who fight for a world bathed in sunlight, a world free from the vampire's tyranny. We have been watching Lumina, engineer. We saw your curiosity, your search for the Dawn Forge." Kai's stomach clenched. "The Dawn Forge? What is it?" Anya's eyes gleamed with a newfound intensity. "It is a relic from a bygone era, engineer. A weapon of forgotten power. A weapon that could pierce the vampire's energy shield and bring back the sun." Kai's heart hammered in his chest. Hope, a foreign sensation, ignited within him. Could this be real? Could the Dawn Forge truly be the key to their liberation? Anya studied him for a long moment. "You stumbled upon the truth, engineer, but the knowledge comes with a price. Are you willing to join us?" Kai looked around the cavern, his gaze taking in the dusty machinery and the determined faces of several other figures emerging from the shadows. They were engineers, technicians, laborers, ordinary people like him, united by a yearning for freedom. He met Anya's gaze, a newfound determination hardening his resolve. He thought of Supervisor Amara, her words of caution echoing in his mind. Yet the image of the oppressive twilight, the stories of a sunlit past, burned brighter. "Yes," he said, his voice ringing clear in the cavernous space. "I'm in." A smile spread across Anya's face. "Welcome, Kai. Together, we may just spark a dawn." The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Anya explained the history of the Dawn Forge, a project from a time before the vampire's rise, designed to harness the sun's energy. The details were fragmentary, lost to time, but the core functionality remained clear. Kai, his engineering skills invaluable, quickly became part of the team tasked with deciphering the Dawn Forge's activation sequence. Hours bled into days as they studied ancient schematics, cobbled together forgotten tech from the chamber, and pieced together the puzzle. The chamber thrummed with a renewed energy, a sense of purpose fueling their every action. Kai, surrounded by these rebels who had dedicated their lives to the fight, felt a sense of belonging he had never known within the sterile confines of Lumina. Finally, after days of tireless work, a breakthrough. Kai, his eyes glued to a salvaged data console, let out a triumphant shout. "I think I've got it! The activation sequence is almost complete!" A cheer erupted in the chamber. Hope crackled in the air, a tangible sensation. They were on the verge of something momentous, something that could change the fate of humanity. But as Kai looked around at the jubilant faces, a nagging worry gnawed at him. Activation was one thing, but using the Dawn Forge in the heavily guarded heart of Lumina was an entirely different challenge. Chapter 5, Dawn Breaks. Weeks turned into months as the Sunborn Rebellion refined the Dawn Forge's activation sequence. Kai, under Anya's guidance, transformed from a curious engineer into a skilled technician, his fingers dancing across salvaged consoles with newfound confidence. He had become an integral part of the resistance, his knowledge and ingenuity proving invaluable. However, the weight of their objective grew heavier with each passing day. Activating the Dawn Forge was one thing, but using it within the heavily guarded confines of Lumina was another. Supervisor Reyes, a ruthless enforcer known for his unwavering loyalty to the Council, had become increasingly suspicious of Kai's late nights and secretive behavior. The tension crackled in the air as palpable as the static clinging to the repurposed communication device Anya held. On the other end, a voice crackled through the static. "We've secured a temporary distraction. You have a 2-hour window, Kai. Make it count." It was Alara, a tech-savvy young woman who had become Kai's closest friend within the rebellion. Her ingenuity in hacking Council security protocols had proven invaluable. Kai took a deep breath, his heart pounding against his ribs. This was it, the culmination of months of work, of hope, of rebellion. He glanced around the hidden chamber, his eyes meeting Anya's. A silent understanding passed between them. "All right, team," Anya's voice, firm and unwavering, echoed in the cavern. "This is it. We fight for a brighter future. We fight for the sun." A chorus of determined nods and grim smiles answered her. They donned salvaged exoskeletons, cobbled together from old mining equipment, offering a sliver of protection against the Council's security forces. Kai strapped on a backpack containing the modified Dawnforge core, its weight a physical manifestation of their hope. They emerged from the hidden chamber, cloaked in the oppressive twilight of the main tunnels. The route Anya had secured led them through rarely used service passages, a maze of twisting corridors that reeked of dust and neglect. Suddenly the air shimmered, and a holographic warning sign materialized before them. "Restricted area. Supervisor Reyes Patrol. Imminent arrival." Kai's stomach sank. Their cover was blown. They had underestimated Reyes's vigilance. "We have to keep moving," Anya hissed, drawing a modified energy pistol from her thigh holster. The others followed suit, a grim determination etched on their faces. A frantic chase ensued. They sprinted through the tunnels, the whine of their exoskeletons echoing in the confined space. Behind them, the pounding of heavy boots announced Reyes's approach. They reached a dead end, a massive metal door blocking their escape. Despair threatened to engulf Kai, but Anya remained calm. "Ilara!" she shouted, her voice strained. A moment later, a faint whirring sound emanated from their communication devices. "Go now," Ilara's voice crackled through the static. "I've overridden the security protocols. You have 30 seconds. Kai and Anya exchanged a quick glance. This was their chance. With a surge of adrenaline, Kai fumbled with the backpack, pulling out the Dawnforge core. It pulsed faintly with a blue light, a beacon of their hope. He attached it to a panel hidden behind the metal door, his fingers flying across the interface. "Activate!" he yelled over the pounding of footsteps echoing closer. The cavern pulsed with a surge of energy. A blinding blue light erupted from the Dawnforge core, momentarily engulfing them all. Kai squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for the impact. Silence. When he opened his eyes, a gasp escaped his lips. The metal door, once an impenetrable barrier, lay in pieces on the ground. Beyond, a faint sliver of light, barely perceptible in the oppressive twilight, cut through the darkness. "The shield! It's down!" Anya whispered, her voice trembling with awe. Kai stepped forward, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and elation. He peeked through the gap, his breath catching in his throat. There, beyond the ravaged metal door, a faint orange glow painted the horizon. It was the sun, a sliver of its brilliance, a forgotten memory come alive. Tears welled up in Kai's eyes. They had done it. They had sparked a dawn. But the battle was far from over. The faint glow served as a stark reminder of the immense power they wielded and the lengths the vampires would go to reclaim it. Kai turned to Anya, a steely resolve etched on his face. "We've woken the sun," he said, his voice ringing with determination. "Now it's time to fight for its light." Anya met his gaze, a fierce glint in her eyes. "For the Sunborn Rebellion," she declared, her voice echoing through the tunnel.